in suspense, cultivate an air of unpredictability. Humans are creatures with habit with an insatiable need to see familiarity in other people's action. Your unpredictability gives them a sense of control. Turn the tables, be they deliberately unpredictable behavior that seems to have no consistency or purpose will keep them off balance, and they will wear themselves out trying to explain your moves. Taken to an extreme, this strategy can intimidate and terrorize. Nothing is more terrifying than the sudden and unpredictable. That is why we are so frightened by earthquakes and tornadoes. We do not know when they will strike. After one has occurred, we wait in terror for the next one. To a lesser degree, this is the effect that unpredictable human behavior has on us. Animals behave in set patterns, which is why we are able to hunt and kill them. Only man has the capacity consciously to alter his behavior, to improvise and overcome the weight of routine and habit, yet most men do not realize this power. They prefer the comforts of routine, of giving in to the animal nature that has them repeating the same compulsive actions time and again. They do this because it requires no effort, and because they mistakenly believe that if they do not unsettle others, they will be left alone. Understand, a person of power instills a kind of fear by deliberately unsettling those around him to keep the initiative on this side. You sometimes need to strike without warning to make others tremble when they least expect it. It is a device that the powerful have used for centuries. Filippo Maria, the last of the Visconti Dukes of Milan in the 15th century Italy, once expected of him. For instance, he might suddenly shower a courtier with attention, and then, once the man had come to expect a promotion to a higher office, would suddenly start treating him with the utmost disdain. Confused, the man might leave the court, when the Duke would suddenly recall him and start treating him well again. Doubly confused, the courtier would wonder whether his assumption that he would be promoted had become obvious and offensive to the Duke, and would start to behave if he no longer expected such honor. The Duke would rebuke him for his lack of ambition and would send him away. The secret of dealing with Filippo was simple. Do not presume to know what he wants. Do not try to guess what will please him. Never inject your will. Just surrender to his will. Then wait to see what happens. Amidst the confusion and uncertainty he created, the Duke ruled supreme, unchallenged and at peace. People are always trying to read the motives behind your actions and to use your predictability against you. Throw in a completely inexplicable move and you put them on the defensive. For a while, Pablo Picasso worked with the art dealer Paul Rosenberg. Then one day, for no apparent reason, he told the man he would no longer give him any work to sell. As Picasso explained, Rosenberg could spend the next 48 hours trying to figure out why. Was I reserving things for some and another dealer? I would go on working and sleeping, and Rosenberg would spend his time figuring. In 2 days he would come back, nerves jaggled, anxious, saying, after all, dear friend, you don't turn me down if I offered you this much, naming a substantially higher figure for those paintings rather than price I have accustomed to paying you. Would you? Unpredictability is only a weapon of terror. Scrambling your patterns on a day-to-day basis will cause a stir around you and stimulate interest. People will talk about you, ascribe motives and explanations that have nothing to do with the truth, but keep you constantly in their minds. In the end, the more capricious you appear, the more respect you will garner. Only the terminally subordinate act in a predictable manner. Learn Learn to keep people dependent on you. The ultimate power is the power to get people to do as you wish. When you can do this without having to force people or hurt them, when they willingly grant you what you desire, then your power is untouchable. The best way to achieve this position is to create a relationship of dependence. The master requires your services, is weak or unable to function without you, you have enmeshed yourself in his work so deeply that doing away with you would bring him great difficulty, or at least would mean valuable time lost in training another to replace you. Once such a relationship is established, you have the upper hand, the leverage to make the master do as you wish. It is the classic case of a man behind the throne, the servant of the king, who actually controls the king. Do not be the one of the many who mistakenly believe the ultimate form of power is independence. Power involves a relationship between people. You will always need others as allies, pawns, or even as weak masters who serve you as your front. If you create no need for yourself, then you will be done away with at the first opportunity. Someone younger, fresher, less expensive, less threatening, which will replace you. Do not take such a chance. Make others dependent on you. To get rid of you might spell disaster. Your master dares not tempt fate by finding out there are many ways to obtain such a position. Foremost among them is to possess a talent and creative skill that simply cannot be replaced. You do not have to be a genius, you do have to have a skill that sets you apart from the crowd. You should always create a situation in which you can always latch on to another master or patron, that your master cannot easily find another servant with your particular talent. And if in reality you are not actually indispensable, you must find a way to make it look as if you are. Having the appearance of specialized knowledge and skills gives you leeway in your ability to deceive those above you into thinking they cannot do without you. Henry Kissinger managed to survive many bloodlettings that went on in the Nixon White House, not because he was in the best diplomat Nixon could find. There were other fine negotiators, and not because the two men got along so well. They did not, nor did they share their beliefs and politics. Kissinger survived because he entrenched himself in so many areas of the political structure that to do away with him would lead to chaos. He got himself involved in so many aspects and departments of the administration that his involvement became a card in his hand. It also made him many allies. If you can arrange such a position for yourself, getting rid of you becomes dangerous. All sorts of interdependencies will unravel. One last warning: do not imagine that your master's dependence on you will make him love you. In fact, he may resent and fear you. But as Machiavelli said, it is better to be feared than loved. Fear you can control, love never. Depending on an emotion as subtle and changeable as love or friendship will only make you insecure. Better to have others depend on you out of fear of the consequences of losing you than out of love of your company. Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea. When he sailed into the little harbor, the lights of terrace were out and he knew everyone was in bed. The breeze had risen steadily and was blowing strongly now. It was quiet in the harbor, though and he sailed up onto the last little patch of shingle below the rocks. There was no one to help him to, so he pulled the boat up as far as he could. Then he stepped out and made her fast to a rock. He unstepped the mast and furled the sail and tied it. Then he shouldered the mast and started to climb. It was then he knew the depth of his tiredness. He stopped for a moment and looked back and saw in the reflection from the street light the great tail of the fish standing up well behind the stiff stern. He saw the white naked line of his backbone and the dark mask of the head with the projecting bill and all the nakedness between. He started to climb again, and at the top he fell and lay for some time with the mast across his shoulder. He tried to get up, but it was too difficult, and he sat there with the mast on his shoulder and looked at the road. A cat passed on a far side, going about its business, and the old man watched it. Then he just watched the road. Finally, he put the mast down. He picked the mast up and put it on his shoulder and started up the road. He had to sit down 5 times before he reached his shack. Inside the shack, he leaned the mast against